Who are some of the names that could be trade bait for teams either...
Well, you got any examples yourself? I mean, I
got a lot, Gerard.
Okay.
I got a lot. What about Jack Darling to St Kilda? St Kilda, desperate need of a forward. And he's still a very capable player.
Yeah. No.
Clearly, West Coast need draft capital, and they could capitalise on St Kilda's desperation for forwards and get them to pay a price above and beyond what Darling is worth.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
that's a good example.
Could Carlton convince West Coast to give them their first pick for Tom De Koning?
Well, they could probably convince West Coast, but they may not be able to convince Tom De Koning.
That's a point. That is a good point. But if they put a massive deal on the table for him and he was thinking about leaving, so of course there's that barrier. That's why, the belief around trading players who are contracted will come into it as well, as much as the AFL Players Association doesn't want that to happen. Could Carlton get Luke Bruce? Carlton need a small forward, and they need a good small forward. Could they get Luke Bruce, and could Hawthorn get a late second-round pick for Luke Bruce, which they probably wouldn't get at the end of the year?
No, that's a good one. I think your point is valid. Luke Bruce's value is even greater at the present time, mid-season, than it would be with Carlton starting again at the end of this year. That said, they're so skinny with experience, Hawthorn, that maybe Sam Mitchell would say, no, we're cut to the bone. We didn't want to lose a couple. We let go a couple that we wanted to lose, but we just desperately need one, and Luke Bruce has been a pretty good player for them.
Send your nominations through 0433 90 11 16. Couple more for you. Jake Riccardi at the Giants kicked 4 in the VFL.
Yep.
Essendon need a key forward. Why couldn't they get Jake Riccardi from GWS? They don't play him anyway.
You reckon Essendon need one now? They got the weed going well. They got 2 metre Peter coming back.
I think he's a good young one. I think he's got more upside.
I reckon they need a key defender more than they need a key forward right now. Like a big-bodied key defender.
There's a few teams that need a key forward, and Jake Riccardi, I would think, is too good to be playing in the VFL. Alex Sexton, for whatever reason, just never plays, or if he does play, sub. He's way too good to be doing that.
I agree with that one.
I had a look at Fremantle and their lack of goal scoring in their forward line. Walters leads their goal scoring with 12. Schulz is next with 10, then it drops off. I think he'd be good for the Dockers. And what about Big Phillips from the Bombers? Could they get a bigger price than what they'd get at the end of the year from Collingwood this year, who are desperate for a ruckman?
That's a good one as well. I think because you look at the desperation, it's different levels. It's what's going to help you potentially win a flag, or what's going to help set you up over the next 2 to 3 years for the type of player that you're looking to get in.
On the whole, do you like it, Jono? Do you like the concept?
On the whole, I like the concept. I think there's a place for it in the game, and then it just comes down to some of the parameters around contracted players, as you mentioned, but also the aspect of where you're at as a football club, the immediate fix. To win, potentially be the point of difference you need to win the flag or get you consistently through a final series. And normally that's the bigger guys. And then you look at a team for the future, and that's the setup that a club may get the luxury of finding someone that they mightn't necessarily get at the end of the year once the season's said and done.
Hey, Gerard, we've got some breaking news out of Geelong. Just want to get your opinion on this. So defender Sam De Koning underwent surgery on Wednesday afternoon to repair a nasal maxillary bone, if I pronounced that correctly, after sustaining the injury during the second half of the club's match against Essendon last Sunday. Now, Simon Lloyd is their general manager of football. He said that he obviously speaks about how important he is, but they expect him to be sidelined for the short term, whatever that means, 1 or 2 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, I saw him come off. He went into the ruck, and he's such a talented player. He did the ruck work with great aplomb. He's got good hands. He doesn't need a ruck coach, Jono. He's got it all. But clearly he got whacked in the eye area or the nose area, and he came off feeling pretty sick and sorry for himself, unfortunately. So it's a bit of a blow for the Cats, but they have got some good depth in that particular area. But as we are finding, big bloke depth it gets tested all the time. I mean, even Collingwood, you say they're desperate for the ruckman, they are, but they've got 2 pretty good ruckmen just sitting out injured, so they may come back. But I really liked your Jack Darling one, whether it's St Kilda or whether it be Freo. I mean, it would be the height of treason over there if you left the Eagles and you went over and sort of helped Fremantle establish themselves at the top end of the ladder. But that one in particular, given the Fremantle, they got Oscar Allen. They need 2. Sorry, the West Coast got Oscar Allen. They need 2, but What would you give up for him if you're St Kilda? Because you'd have to almost be giving up a future first.
Yes, I think so. So I think the going rate for a player like that at the end of the year in any normal circumstances, sort of a second, late sort of second for a player of that age. But that's the whole point of it. They're desperate now. They're in the top 4. Can we win it? What do we need? Let's just pay the price.
Would you do it even with Max King coming back?
I think he still fits in all right with Max King coming back.
I think he fits in well because
King, Membry and Darling is pretty potent.
Yeah, the Kennedy, Lacroix and Darling combination for West Coast was so good. They played the triangle. They just worked the angles really well. Up one to the wing, one in the middle, one back inside forward 50. Rotate it whichever side of the ground the ball was on. There's a place for 3, and I think wherever if he stays at West Coast, great. But if he moves on, it'll work at St Kilda with 3.
A few texts coming through on this. I think a lot of teams could use Lockie Whitfield off half-back, says Troy. You're kidding, Kane. Tom de Koning for West Coast first. Carlton don't need another player who doesn't chase anymore. Bruce is not manic anymore. I think he might be if he's chasing another premiership.
He's a really interesting character, Paddy Dow. I actually ran into somebody and we were talking about Paddy Dow today, and I'll just marry my response with this text that the 20th licence should be based off a promotion relegation system between the non-AFL affiliated teams around Australia, example Frankston, Norwood, to play off for the licence. Bottom place team on the AFL ladder gets relegated from Matt. And, I mean, whilst I don't mind the idea in theory, what has really transpired over the last few decades is the gap between the next level and the AFL is so vast that a side that was elevated up like Norwood would get blown off the park almost every game. I mean, it would be impossible, I think, to bridge the gap between being the best Sandful club, if you like, and getting into the AFL. And Paddy Dow may just be a kid that is really good at the next level down, but has yet to show that he can accumulate on a regular basis 25 possessions at senior level. So that's his challenge. We know he's good enough at the junior level, at the level down, but that unfortunately is not a guarantee that you're good enough to do it at the top level. What's your thoughts, Kane?
I'm with you, Gerard. I think we have seen enough of Paddy Dow and he has had enough opportunities to show if he's up to the level, and he hasn't been good enough to do that. So what are we? We're 5 seasons in. You know, and John, I'll bring you in because of the work you've done in the development space. You know 5 years in to a player's career at the AFL, particularly the high draft picks, whether they're going to be successful or not.
It's very rare that someone of Paddy Dow's quality as a junior gets to this stage but then can kick again. And it is rare. We talk of someone like Will Brodie, who's a similar sort of position, I suppose, who did get that opportunity, but it lasted 1 year and now it's dropped off a little bit in that.
He may come again, though.
No, he could come again, but Paddy Dow could fall into a similar role if at the right club. But once again, it's on the player. It's not as if he hasn't had time to actually fight through a scenario to get himself consistently in that. When he is in there, stay in there. And
look, it may come again for him. I mean, we've seen, what's the name of the young bloke that Carlton picked up as a 26-year-old? Sincotta, is it?
Yep, it is.
Sincotta. I mean, he looks a player. He's got speed. He's got skill. And he can run. Now, Paddy Dow just may take that extra couple of years, but the gap between the VFL and the SANFL, it is vast. So that system is never going to eventuate. We were talking about the buys as well, Jono, that is going to come in, and we're looking for a solution. And clearly it's got to be based around 2 buys because with 19 teams, not everybody can have just 1 buy. It just doesn't work that way. So it's going to have to be a function of 2 buys. But nobody is going to want to buy in round 1, surely. And Damien has pushed through 1 selection, 18 rounds, 1 buy. That's 9 matches in 5 rounds with 3 buys, 1 round with 5 buys. So all up, you need 38 buys. But no one wants one in round 1.
With 19, will we shorten the season? Will the season shorten? Will that ever happen?
We've just extended it.
I know, but
we're
talking about 4 or 5 years' time. Will the season become 18 rounds?
It may do. It may be when we go to 20. It becomes 2 franchises.
We've done the broadcast further out than that, though, haven't we? So they've paid $4.5 billion. They want more games, not less, I would have thought.
Yeah, so it's hard to see.
All these decisions will be made.
Exactly. And you're right. When we give Tassie by in the first round 1, newest team in. Sorry, you're out.
How do you adjudicate who misses out in the gather round, Jono?
Yeah, well, that's it. He just It's just reality. It becomes reality, and someone will miss out. Maybe
Kane says wooden spoon, or what do you think?
whoever's last
From
at
the
that
previous
particular
year.
point, or from the
Nah,
previous
from the previous
year.
year.
It's as good as any solution.
Well, it is as good as any solution. Someone will have to miss. So that's
Who should they play in their
You'd hate it
first
to be.
ever
You'd hate
game?
it to be in Adelaide, and Adelaide just say the Crows finished last the following year, and then all of a sudden,
Well, that's true.
You can't be going to a state and not have the team here from the state playing.
Who should Tassie play in their first ever game?
First ever game, Tassie. Wow, that's very good, very good.
We'll put that one out there.
I reckon in 4 years' time, Hawthorn could be pretty good. So it could be Tassie versus Hawthorn.
That's a good suggestion. In Tassie.
In Tassie.
All right, in Hobart. 0433 98 11 16 if you've got a thought. All right, Jono, you think that, well, give us your thoughts around the concessions of what the AFL should be looking at. We've got history recent to tell us how they went about it with GWS and Gold Coast. Have you got a thought?
Oh, development, we talk about it a lot. I think it just needs to become number one and one of the number one priorities with that. And then some employments to go along the lines. I think, I'm not too sure in terms of when they employ a list manager, but it has to become, I know the board will get set first and a couple of decisions off the back of that, but the list manager nearly has to become critical in this instantly, because they have to start developing, nurturing, understanding the type of talent they would like to get in, not only from a draft point of view, but also from other players around the competition. Start having those conversations within the next 2 years with players that are currently contracted. And with development, having been part of the AFL Academy, you see the youngsters come through the best 30, and they will probably be set up for the first Tasmania team at the right time. And that'll be great for them anyway. They'll get that influx. But for me, the development also has to go to the 18-year-old now, that 18 to 19-year-old that will be 22, 23 in that period of time. So maybe we need to set up a separate academy for that mature player that is a bit bigger, a bit stronger, so they get that opportunity to be in elite environments, in an elite environment leading into what potentially could be a draft for them at that particular point as well. Is there been any talk around a training facility?
Yeah, they're going to have a $90 million high-performance centre.
In Hobart.
That's
good. And is that just going to be for the Tasmanian Devils, or will that be a collective of a few different clubs?
I suspect it'll be primarily the Devils, and there'll be access for a few others.
Okay, and that's good, because I hadn't heard that yet. So that was another question I had, is what was going on around the training facility? Because it'll
be Mickey Mouse.
That has to be Mickey Mouse, and it has to be state of the art, and it has to match with what they're building in what the players will go and play in as well. So, but the development side of things is the critical aspect, and the employment of the list manager becomes probably one of the most one of the top priorities that the new franchise has to embark on.
Who's the best talent selector at the present time, do you think? Who gets it right more often than not?
Wow. Kinnear Beatson, I think, has been very good. I think Andrew Mackey would be amazing. I'd pick Geelong, and I know I'm going to talk about the coach and CEO and all those sort of things, but I think to Geelong instantly, where you had a Chris Scott, Simon Lloyd combination, would be brilliant in terms of a first step for Tassie in 4 or 5 years' time. I know Lloydie is the GM of football down there at the moment, but he's ready to step up into a CEO role, no question. And that might be the opportunity that he gets. And would Chris Scott follow him potentially down to Tassie? Because what they know how to nurture the draftees that come in, but they also know how to, and the smarts around getting the type of player that will allow them to succeed quite quickly in this competition.
Tim Lamb from Melbourne is very good.
He's very good,
as
Lammy.
well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hasn't missed many.
No. And not sort of many do, really. The amount of scouting that they've got right around the country allows them to set themselves up. And we all know that within this system you'll get a few wrong along the way, but that's just the reality of it.
Speaking of development, there's an Adelaide youngster that's caught your eye.
Well, there's a couple in Adelaide that have caught my eye big time. I was talking to Mark Rasciuto about this on the weekend. Saligo and Pedler, I absolutely love.
Yes,
I think this guy's got something that'll really set him apart in a few years' time. Michael Annie's the one that I'd like to talk about though, because I've watched him live twice now in the last 3 weeks, and this young man is rarely beaten in a one-on-one. He's tough. He's composed when he gets the ball and uses it quite well. He's excellent at that kick out of the back half, about 20, 25 metres, not afraid to come inboard as well with the footy. And I just sort of had a look at who's been nominated for the Rising Star so far. Now, Michael Annie was nominated in round 5, which is great. He's got he's got his tick. Sheasel, round 1. Ashcroft, round 2. Ginby from West Coast, round 3. Owens, who's had a good year for St Kilda, at 4. Michael Annie, 5. Cully from West Coast, 6. And then Finn Callaghan has just recently been selected as a rising star. So I go, okay, that's the group that's going to take the award this year. One of those players will. Mackenzie from Hawthorn, someone who should get nominated. Van Ruin may have a massive second half of the year, who knows, and kick a truckload of goals. Filippo from the Saints has played early, played quite well, hasn't been nominated yet, but will he take it out? I'm not too sure. I'd love the All-Australian selectors, though, to really keep an eye, because they're the ones who selected. I know there's a panel that select a player every week, then the All-Australian selectors select the winner of the rising star. Just because he doesn't get your 30s every week like Sheasel or an Ashcroft, keep an eye on Michael Annie, please, because what he's doing defensively, and he's playing some of the toughest roles in footy as a youngster. He's not running around on his own. He's beating a man every single week, or men every single week. So I just urge the selectors not just to go off the stats that are presented. Sorry, Kane, I didn't know you were involved in that. But don't just go off the stats that are presented. Start to watch this guy closely on what he does when the ball's not around, when he's in one-on-one situations, and how calm he is in this tough position that he plays down back.
And how tough he is as well.
Exactly right.
And the Todd Marshall collision
how bad was that?
Round 3 reminds me, and he pretty much got straight up. So they've got an absolute ripper, and he's standing up, and they've needed him to stand up. We spoke to Horney about Adelaide's defence, and Murray's improved a lot and Butts, but him coming in that Ben Hart style role has been vital for them. It's a good observation. It's a red hot field, and whoever wins it is going to be incredibly deserving. You were in Adelaide on Sunday. You made the trip down?
It did,
good game of footy.
Great game of footy. Oh. It was brilliant. It had absolutely everything. Adelaide shot themselves in the foot early on, and you know where they shot themselves in the foot though throughout the entire day, and it's probably their biggest improvement area is just giving the ball forward to someone in a better position. It's as simple as that for the Adelaide Crows. They're getting enough looks inside 50. Yet it probably started with Pedler, who had a shot from 55 when he had, I think, Tex Walker in the goal square and he kicked it over his head. Rankin missed one.
He's got a bit of goal blindness early in the piece, Pedler. Yeah. He's late to a handball, and he does like having a ping.
Yeah, and I don't mind that, but you've got to have both sides of it where you're actually hitting them up, because you're hitting up the teammate that's in a better position. Ben Keys should have kicked 5.
Yep.
He was out by himself. Now, Ben Keys has got to work on his body language when he's not used. I see him with the arms out a lot, but I understand his frustration, because this guy played an important role, and we spoke about what he did pressure-wise on Dacos, which was pretty good. But overall, Dacos still got a bit of ball and was competitive himself, but he could have really put some heat on him with 4 or 5 on the scoreboard when he was just open, and Adelaide don't go to him. Start going to Ben Keys.
My wife knows nothing about football, and she said, "Don't they like that bloke?" they just burned him that many. What is it about him that they don't give him the football? Don't they like him?
John, I haven't heard you as frustrated on the boundary line or in commentary as I heard you on the weekend re the umpiring. I mean, you are very supportive of the umpires.
I am. Yep.
But for some reason, you were a bit flummoxed, or you're a bit flabbergasted about
in the last quarter in particular. So, and we've all heard and seen and spoken about the incident with Murphy and Fogarty coming back and hit him in the head, but then obviously the deliberate out of bounds when the doctor was right there, and I think Jordan De Goey played that as well as he possibly could. He picks it up, he hits the doctor and the player coming off. And then the final one as well with Ash Johnson over the shoulder. But it's not only that.
What's your overall on the umpires?
But I watched Sicily play on in front of the mark against the Bulldogs, and I've seen that a couple of times this year. And I think now this is the round the umpires as a team, and they are a team, that they need to actually take some really stock on how they've gone this year. And that's the full stop on some of these basic errors that are happening in the game. I understand how difficult it is, and I will support them every day of the week. But I think as a team, like every other team in the competition, the umpiring team needs to have a really good look at each other this week at all levels, from field, boundary, the collective goals, the whole lot need to come together and then work through this as the collective, because this is the start of their season as of this week now. They've had 7 weeks, 4 umpires working together. Some mistakes have been made. They're still working each other out, I think, in terms of the positioning of it all. That now has had enough time. let's get it right from this point.
What do you think? What genre of free kick do you think they're missing? I mean, I know they missed the Himmelberg dropping of the ball. Everybody was caught up in the fascination with Tom Green, but it was a shocking miss. It cost the Swans the game, but that's just one-off. Are you more talking holding the ball? You're talking pushing the back? Is there a genre of free kick you think they're missing?
It's a combination. I still think they're working out whether or not who can call the free kick, or if someone overrides another umpire as well. Because we saw one where Quainer was held really lightly, and it was probably there, but the umpire in play didn't call it. Yeah. The umpire a couple hundred metres away played.
And we might get Lawrence to chase up the audio of Razor Ray with Gerard, because he was explaining that today, the Ash Johnson one. There's only a certain umpire that can pay the decision, which I didn't get. If one of the 4 umpires sees it,
see it, call it. Yeah, exactly
right.
We all know it, so see it. If you see it, call it. No, I'd prefer that than the non-call at all. So from their perspective, I think it's a really good time for the umpires and I'm sure they are, to get these things right leading in the next 4 weeks of footy, which are critical.
What about the Dogs and the Giants rivalry? Is it real?
It's real, big time real. And if the coach from the opposition puts it on the agenda, it's real.
Before we get to Jono's rolling All-Australian team, Gerard, you got a question about the capacity in Tassie.
Yeah, I probably should have put this to Gutsy Goodwin last night, but they're talking 22, 23, 20 to 25. For a big game, I mean, surely this is all about, it's been sold to us, and rightly so, in my view, that it should be a great tourist attraction. But if you've got a big game, surely there'd be 20,000 people from Tassie wanting to go. And if it's only at 22,000 capacity, is 2,000 seats enough to sort of justify the tourism angle? I mean, surely you'd want just a few more. Because if you've got Collingwood going down there, they're going to have at least 5,000 people go down there.
In my mind, I'm thinking they could have 20,000 members straight up.
Yeah, that's what I'd be thinking.
So maybe... Could it be pushed to 30, or is that just an extension on the funds?
Well, it's going to cost more per seat.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's probably around 25 is probably the sweet spot, isn't it? But
I'd like to know the modelling.
30 wouldn't be 30 would be okay, I think, for the future of the sport. And you're right, with the bigger clubs going down there and the support that they'll bring as well. So 30 would be great.
We'll find out the modelling at some stage, Jono, but let's get down to more important things, and this is current. You're rolling All-Australian, your captain and your coach, if you want to name one.
Here we go, from the back line. Darcy Moore, Harris Andrews and Sard. From the Blues, Sinclair, Wilkie and Dacos. No, none from the back line.
Okay.
None from the back line. Then we go Sinclair, Wilkie, Dacos. And then we go Josh Dacos on the wing, Bont in the middle, and Mason Wood. Charlie Cameron at half forward, Petrarca and DeGoey. Curnow, Jeremy Cameron and Toby Green is the full forward line. Rucks is English, Dawson and Oliver. On the bench is Rosie, Sarong, Neal and Dangerfield. Just gets a look in.
Who's been axed, Jono?
He's starting to roll. My sub is still Pendles.
Yep.
He's gone from bench to sub, and he'll jump back in, I'm sure, when he gets going again. In is Danger, DeGoey and Rosie. Out is Parrish, Papley and Rankin.
You brought Rosie in after last week's game.
Yes, I did.
7 possessions to half time.
Rosie is in. Don't question my team, Gerard, or you're allowed to. And my coach is Craig McRae, and my captain is no longer Jeremy Cameron.
Oh.
After what I witnessed on the weekend from a Collingwood point of view, it is Darcy Moore. What this guy is doing to inspire his team at the moment is outstanding.
You brought him up.
And I've unfortunately sacked Jeremy and given it to
brushed.
the defender. He's been brushed for Darcy Moore, and who's brilliant.
Any questions from you, Kane, outside of the obvious one about Rosie?
Craig McRae wasn't the coach. Would it be Ken Hinkley?
Oh, it'd nearly have to be with their run at the moment, Kane.
I think it would
It's
be
a good little lead in by you to get another Port Adelaide mention.
Ross or Ken Hinkley, I reckon, for Coach of the year at the moment after round 7. But long way to go, obviously.
It is. Craig McRae's the man.
Was there anyone you stewed over that was incredibly unlucky?
Probably Parrish is the one that's probably unlucky at the moment, I think, from a Bombers point of view. He has got some really solid numbers. And I debated whether he stayed in and Sarong was out from a Fremantle point of view. Danger's the one that was the most intriguing this week. Just he's starting to really fly, and I think he's
last
pushed
4 weeks
himself
have
in.
been
Yeah,
superb.
they've been awesome. And you're right around Rosie. There was some thought around that, but I think his body of work gets him in.
Yep.
And I was keen to get De Goey back in again. I know he's been in and out of side a lot in the first 7 weeks, but what he's doing outweighs what Papley or Rankin are definitely doing.
All right, so just a couple before we let you go. We've got a minute because you're busy. Of the Sydney players, is it the Clarksman that gets Dacos? Is he capable of doing a similar role to what Keys did on the weekend?
I don't think
Ryan Clark.
No, yeah,
He's done it. He did
from a stopping
done
point
it.
of view, yes.
He did
But
it
I don't know if
last
he can
year.
I don't know if he can go on ball with him though, Gerard. That was a defensive forward role. Can
Yeah,
he
good
go on
point.
ball, and can he get off him like Keys was able to do?
No, I don't think he can, but he can be a pure stopper. I like Keys has got the smarts to find ball and find it in dangerous spots to hurt going back the other way. That's the type of player that you want. You can get Dacos having 10 kickouts and you can, there's 10 disposals already, and you can't get lost in all of that sort of stuff. It's what you can do, I think, going back the other way, because Collingwood use him so well. He can play in multiple positions. The players look for him all the time. He pushes players out of the position so he can run into space. Plays it perfectly, so he's tough. I think you've got to put someone who can hurt him the other way.